I think everyone by this time has known that Kevin McCarthy has been ousted as the Speaker of the House. I really see this type of stuff coming, and this is one of those things I think, kind of, I mentioned earlier that if your guy doesn't win, you kind of just don't want to participate. So it's kind of hypocritical when I say that this is a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. I think we should come together. However, this is what I see is going to start happening in the Republican Party because the people, the voters, not the people in the Republican Party, but the voters want people that actually do stuff. They have noticed for years now that Republicans are all talk, no action. And what you're starting to see is they're sick of losing. They're sick of when the Democrats in charge, they do whatever they want, and then Republicans in charge, they do whatever the Democrats want. So when he was elected, I know that he promised a bunch of things he was going to do. He was going to release the J6 tapes. He was going to do spending bills that just happened to be like on one thing each and not combining them, making them like an omnibus type bill or whatever. And he hasn't followed through. And what I'm thinking is going to happen is, like Matt Gaetz said, and I'll play a little bit of what Matt Gaetz said, but I think what's going to start happening is people are going to just start supporting their politicians that they believe in and stop supporting parties. I don't know how that's going to look. I don't know if it's going to be successful, but I just think so many people are just done with a do nothing party, and they're going to hold the party accountable by holding the representatives accountable by saying, listen, if you do what we want you to do and what you say you're going to do, we'll fund you, we'll back you. If you don't, you get nothing and the GOP gets nothing. So let's listen to a little bit what Matt Gaetz has to say, and we'll talk about it.
Chaos is somebody who we cannot trust with their word. The one thing that the White House, House Democrats, and many of us on the conservative side of the Republican caucus would argue is that the thing we have in common, Kevin McCarthy said something to all of us at one point or another that he didn't really mean and never intended to live up to. I don't think voting against Kevin McCarthy is chaos. I think $33 trillion in debt is chaos. I think that facing a $2.2 trillion annual deficit is chaos. I think that not passing single subject spending bills is chaos. I think the fact that we have been governed in this country since the mid-90s by continuing resolution and omnibus is chaos. And the way to liberate ourselves from that is a series of reforms to this body that I would hope would outlast Speaker McCarthy's time here, would outlast my time here, and would outlast either of our majorities. Reforms that I have heard some of the most conservative members of this body fight for, and some of the reforms that we've been battling for that I've even heard those in the Democrat caucus say would be worthy and helpful to the House, like open amendments, like understanding what the budget is. We have been out of compliance with budget laws for most of my life, most of many of your lives. And by the way, if we did those things, if we had single subject bills, if we had an understanding on the top line, if we had open amendments, if we had trust and honesty and understanding, there would be times when my conservative colleagues and I would lose, might be a few times when we'd win. There'd be times that we would form partnerships that might otherwise not be really predictable in the American body politic, but the American people would see us legislating.
And that's the big thing right there. And we've discussed this before, is when I was growing up, and probably when you were younger too, politicians somewhat worked together to get stuff done. There was compromise. And now with this whole everything's for the party and it's not for the people, it's been inverted. And I think his message is going to resonate with a lot of voters because voters want their voices to be heard, and they're realizing that politicians aren't listening. They give you a lot of lip service, say a lot of nice things, and don't deliver. They deliver for the party. They put the party over the people.
Yeah, and it's a great point, and I think that's a theme that we've been seeing across the spectrum, both at the federal level and at the state level, is that the Republican Party is not really aligned with its voters, or the majority of its voters, so to speak. And I was after listening to Gaetz say that, I kind of looked it up, and I was shocked. I mean, it didn't really surprise me, but it was The last time that Congress had passed a budget on time was 1996. And I think in their entire history under this new system, they've only done it 4 times. And not, I think only one of those times it was actually on time.
Yeah.
Because there's other like appropriation bills and things that need to be done. And I just think, yeah, I come from like a finance and accounting background, and I'm like, I can't think of a time that we were even late with a budget, or like in the private sector. I mean, heads would roll if you were trying to roll up a budget to your CEO, months after the fact, or like you really didn't have any real hard accountability on where the money's going. And Congress has just been able to get away with it. And like you said, a lot of it is intentional, and it's done to like fit everything into these omnibus bills where it's like, hey, the famous Nancy Pelosi bill. Oh, you have to pass it before you find out what's in it. And it's just, the American voter is sick and tired of this stuff. And it's like, he's 100% right. It's like, you need to pass these as individual bills so that people can understand what's actually going on, as opposed to these 3,000 page budget documents.
Yeah. So here's the other thing too, is I didn't have time to get this video, but I was watching a video. I don't even know who the member of Congress was on the House floor the other day, but Matt Gaetz kind of alluded to that. We have this $33 trillion deficit. Now we have this $33 trillion deficit. So that means starting next year, we're just going to owe $1 trillion a year just in interest.
The other thing that was crazy about that too is it's growing substantially as interest rates keep creeping up. The interest payments go up higher and higher, and I think it's even gotten to the point where it's accelerating. Like you said, it just an interest, but the spending too adds on top of that. So it's the debt is growing at these interest rates. That there was one report out there that it was up to $1 trillion per month.
That's
so
crazy.
I mean, that's obviously unsustainable. And like he was saying, I mean, if that were to continue indefinitely, if there's no real plan to put the spending in check, then or put the deficit in check, then there's going to be some really big pain ahead for a lot of people.
So this ties nicely because we have people running in our state for positions, and we have people that every politician that runs, let's be honest, say they want change or they want to make things better. I think what you're starting to actually find is that there are candidates that are willing to put in the time and actually do the fighting, because it's going to be fighting. You're going to be facing a lot because this system was created to protect itself, not to protect the people. So we go from Bruce Chester trying to do that, and then we go to Matt Gaetz sitting there talking about how for years the government's just been going along to get along, and they don't really care to fix it. We've discussed that plenty of times. They don't really care to fix the problems. They just want to solve new problems that they think are new problems that solve nothing. And then I saw this video of Joe Biden, and he was